Welcome to episode something. What are we at?
Some
It's probably
episode
17-ish.
17-ish.
We're here with Ben and Dion. You guys want to tell us what you're up to these days, and we'll jump in from there?
Sure. So I'm Dion Almaer, and along with Ben, co-founded Ajaxian, and now we're at
Mozilla.
Yay.
We're part of Mozilla Labs, and we're responsible for developer tools, and also we're working a lot on open web strategy at Mozilla.
Very cool.
Great.
Do you like what I wore just for you here?
Dude, nice
James?
shirt.
Old school,
Yeah,
you
Dion's
know,
got the
old school.
Apollo shirt.
Yeah.
Very
We have the
nice.
signed version.
Yeah.
Signed by
Yeah.
Kevin Lynch or something.
Yeah.
Did you hear about that? Like a signed version of the shirt went for real money on eBay.
Serious?
Back in the day.
The whole
Oh, the
team.
whole team or something like that? Okay.
It was like four
Nice.
figures, if I'm not mistaken.
No.
Yeah.
Serious?
Yes.
They were all at
Okay.
Mars last night.
Yes.
Sign them off.
We should. This is a business model.
Yeah, we could take a
Get
bunch.
signed. Just go to like different engineering places and
We could do it with the
Well,
Firefox shirt, Brendan and I. We could
Yeah.
like
totally.
that.
It's
Yeah. This
So
is
mail
a
in.
business.
Post a comment, and we'll not send you your free autographed shirt.
Yeah. Cool. Well, so you guys are working on developer tools at Mozilla.
Yeah.
This is a pretty new thing. I know you guys have been posting some stuff about what you've been doing. I've seen a lot of great blogs about like the usability stuff that you guys have been working through.
Yeah.
But maybe tell us a little bit more about what you guys are building, what it's for, and
Yeah, that sounds good.
what the future is for online developer tools.
Okay. So I'll talk about like overall, and you can dive into Bespin.
Sure,
Okay.
yeah.
So like, the big picture is that like when we first got to Moz, we were excited about like doing all these
Moz,
little
wait,
tools.
Moz is like the
Moz is like
that's
the-
like
the
the
cool
in
thing.
okay,
Inside
okay,
it.
right.
I work at Moz.
The Mo's and the Dove guys.
So when we first got there, we had visions of like, we're going to do all these small tactical tools and make the web better. And like every time we'd sit down to do one, we kind of like Google and be like, oh, there's like 5 of them.
Right.
And like no one's heard of these things, but they're out there. And we covered on Ajaxian like 2 years ago, and we forgot that we covered it. It's
Yeah.
like, so we thought, we've got to do something about this. We've got to try and defragment it. And
Yeah.
so there's a couple of things we're doing. Like we launched this tools directory, which is just a first step. It was just like, hey, let's
Right.
try and get like a little directory together. And it was more like a call for people to submit things. And we're going to evolve that and like create a central directory. Today it's at tools.mozilla.com, and
cool.
we're going to continue to evolve that to be like a central repository of stuff
Right.
and make it easy to search. But strategically, we're like right now, like looking at like when you develop software, we figure there's a couple of phases everyone goes through. There's the
In the
design
waterfall
phase.
model, or
I know, it sounds waterfall-y, but like we're trying to like look at like when you design,
life.
when you code, when you debug, when you test, when you deploy, and when you document. What are the tools that you use on any
Right.
platform?
Right.
What are the tools that are available on the open web, identifying gaps and helping people find tools along those
That's
lines?
cool.
So that's one of the things we're doing from like a big picture, looking at the whole
Yeah.
tool space and trying to
Right.
help people make decisions. And then we have like some specific tools we're working on.
Yeah, so one of the small ones recently, we found a gap where, coming from the Java world and stuff, it's like you can go right into the VM and see everything, what's
Right.
going on. There's fantastic tools. And the browser is this black box. It's like, there's the browser and it's got stuff.
right.
And so we wanted to take the opportunity. We work at a browser vendor, so
Right.
maybe we
Yeah,
can do
yeah.
something about that.
Yeah, totally.
And so we created a little prototype memory tool that
Huh.
all it does is attach to Firefox. So it can attach remotely,
Oh, nice.
as well as being able to just run it on Firefox itself, and it gives
Right.
you the full heap and gives you
Wow,
information
very
about
cool.
it.
Sounds phenomenal.
And
That's great.
remotely, we really wanted to do that because we have Firefox Mobile Fennec.
Right.
We need to be able to.
Yeah.
You don't want to like run Firebug on your mobile device and
Yeah.
stuff,
Yeah.
piecing through, and like everything's going remote anyway. So
Yeah.
so that's one of these little tactical tools.
Nice. Oh, that's very cool.
Our biggest
So you
investment.
guys were the core developers on this project, or like product
The instigators.
project lead? Okay.
Yeah, we have to give props to another guy in the lab, a
Yeah.
guy named Atul Varma, who was really the glue between
Yeah.
the Firefox team and us. We did like front end stuff, but he was
Right.
the guy who like.
So
worked
he's
out
like the
how to-
hardcore C guy who's
Yeah.
like doing the
Yeah,
hardcore
exactly.
stuff.
He's
and
the
you
guy
guys
that
were
did
gonna work on the
Ubiquity,
UI
and
Oh, okay.
now he's
Nice.
working a lot on
Great.
Jetpack.
Yeah.
And so we had some like overlapping
Yeah.
stuff.
We
We
should
went to this
also
memory
we should
tool.
also give props to Dave Barron on
Yeah.
the core Firefox platform team.
Yeah.
He's he's been thinking about memory tools for ages in Firefox,
Nice.
and he's
Yeah.
kind of all of our Sherpa to like tell us
Right.
this is how you can do
Yeah.
it, and the tools the magic maker.
Nice.
So
That's
Barron,
awesome.
he built of like leak detectors and things like this for Firefox developers, actually
right.
building
Yeah,
Firefox.
yeah.
And now we're like trying to expose this stuff to
Very cool.
developers because
Very cool.
back in the day, web apps, people hitting reload all the time,
Yeah.
no one cared, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Now they live for a
Now
long
that-
time.
Yeah,
so
yeah. Now you have state
so,
to deal with.
yeah.
So you guys coding C? Are you
Us,
guys?
no.
Yeah.
JavaScript.
Yeah,
JavaScript.
I was gonna say.
So yeah, a tool built this little service
Yeah.
that is actually in Jetpack now,
Okay.
and so I guess we should explain Jetpack
Yeah,
just in case
yeah,
someone doesn't know. Jetpack is kind of this experiment on doing extensions again. So
Okay.
right now you do extensions in Firefox the old way, so to speak. It's all this, Zool, and it's
Right.
like its own system and
yeah.
its own whole thing.
Yeah.
Very rich.
Yeah.
Can do anything you want. It's kind of like you go through this peephole and then you can
Yeah.
access anything Firefox has.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is scary
Yeah.
and good, depending on what
Yeah.
you're doing. Well, Jetpack is trying to okay, if we were to write that today, we would just write it on the web.
Right.
And you should be able to just do HTML, CSS, JavaScript to build the add-ons.
Oh, totally.
So as part of this, he wanted to have something that would track these Jetpacks and show you how much memory the add-on is using.
Nice.
So if I'm using a browser and it feels kind of slow,
Yeah.
like right now, oh wait a minute, I've got Firebug open, and
Yeah.
there's a few things you kind of know can slow things down.
Yeah.
This would tell you these are all your add-ons. This is how much memory they're taking, so
That's
you
cool.
can actually understand what's going on more than just the
Nice.
browser is slow.
Yep.
So this is where we kind of overlapped.
Cool.
And for that, he built this low-level service, exposed it to JavaScript.
Right.
So
Okay.
then we could do a lot of the work.
It's kind of the
in
next
JavaScript.
generation extension architecture, and then
Yep.
that enabled you to build these other developer tools on top of that.
Yep, exactly.
So then you have access to pretty low level APIs, like in the browser through this,
Yes.
and through JavaScript.
It's getting that way. So
Okay.
with Jetpack, we have to expose the platform explicitly
Right.
to you through
Okay.
JavaScript.
Right.
That's the idea. We had an earlier effort called Fuel to sort of wrap Firefox APIs as JavaScript, and
Okay.
Jetpack is also the sort of spiritual successor to that initiative.
Okay.
So that at the end of the day, you can just be a web developer. And sort of like with the Palm Pre, you
Yeah.
have like this new set of JavaScript objects, and the Jetpack world is the same thing. You have
Nice.
these new JavaScript objects you can build
That's-
with.
And it embeds jQuery and all that stuff right there for you. So
Right.
as a web developer, you just kind of go for it.
Yeah.
You just got these new APIs. Like they just released a new one that has an audio API.
Yeah.
So you can do audio recording.
Oh, very cool.
And so they're working on streaming, so you'll be able
That's
to do
great.
AV streaming.
Awesome.
Which right now you have to use Flash.
Right, yeah.
And things like that to
Well,
get
and
access.
right now in Flash, you don't have access to the microphone directly. You have to like
Right.
send it to the server.
Yeah.
Kind of annoying. So
Yeah, because they want
cool to have those.
Some
kinds
people
of-
we talk to want to do client-side echo cancellation and
right.
stuff like that.
Yeah,
with
not
Flash.
even possible in Flash. So yeah.
So a year or two down the road, does this all end up in one Firefox IE type tool that developers are using, or is this all just these one-off tools that?
Yeah, so that's interesting. We when we first started doing this, we asked developers kind of what do they want, and one of the common trends that we saw was people actually wanted, they wish that we could run Firebug and attach to all these different browsers.
Right.
Right now, other browsers have really awesome tools too that
Yeah.
are kind of catching up to Firebug and very similar, but they still say I want one tool that just kind of does all the work.
Right.
So that's why a lot of our stuff early on was this remote. In theory, you can attach to different browsers, publish the protocols. all
Yeah,
that kind
well,
of
and it almost
stuff.
seems like there should be standardized protocols, or like so that all the browser vendors can expose the same protocol, and then
It's
you
getting
can build
there,
a
but
standard
it's getting
tool
there
set
the
on
web
top.
way. Like if you
Yeah.
look at like
Right.
web
Yeah.
way.
Well, and that's not bad. I mean, take
No,
something that works and
It's like,
then
look,
get everyone to implement
It's painful. It's painful. Like if you look at Chrome just published their protocol for remote attaching. I don't know if you saw this just like a couple of days ago.
No,
They just, maybe it was even
Oh, cool.
yesterday. They just
Yeah,
published
nice.
this protocol so that
Okay.
Eclipse can remotely attach to anyone
To
can
Chrome.
remotely attach. And they
Right.
released a plugin for Eclipse that it remotely attaches.
That's
But
cool.
Opera published their protocol like several months ago. Which is
Yeah.
totally different.
So now we've got different-
And there's some other experimental protocols for
protocols.
Firebug that are
Yeah.
totally different. And we have our own lab that's totally different.
Yeah.
So,
Well, it takes a little bit of time for people to try things, and then hopefully, there emerges one clear
Yeah.
path to do it, and
Yeah.
then everyone, just like XML HTTP request, right?
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Well, I was even asking about like your open web tools directory. Does
Yeah.
that end up in one tool where I want to build a
You could have a
targets
developer
browsers?
suite.
Yeah.
The browser
Yeah,
developer
it'll
suite.
probably be more because of the way the web is, like pushing this evolution
Yeah.
to the edges. More kind of, we've talked a long time about giving developers happy paths.
Yeah, that's
where it's
kind of
like, here's a few happy paths, and you can if you love jQuery, then this is one happy path. You love this kind of tool, this can be one happy path for you, rather than kind of like here's the one massive tool.
Yeah, and I guess I'm looking for the in-between of the vendor solution and the open solution where I need to build something as a consultant. I want, sometimes what's in the box isn't great, but it's nice that I just go get Flash Builder.
It's interesting to talk to people about why the web is so great, because we were just talking to someone yesterday who was like, more choice is better. That's why the web is awesome, because you have all these choices. But really,
it's a blessing and a curse.
In our company, our saying is freedom from choice. There's a point where our customers don't care.
Well, there's Barry Schwartz wrote a book called The Paradox of Choice, which can be summed up as more choice makes us less happy.
Yeah, there's also a great TED Talk.
Exactly. And the way we kind of look at it is that the thing about the web that people love, I think, is vendor independence.
Right.
You don't have one company that's telling you, and you have to sort of beg them, please, and you have to sort of live in fear that all of a sudden your needs won't be, in opposition to the corporate strategy. So people love the fact that the web is decentralized. There's no one vendor. But I don't think anyone really who has to make money writing software, really likes infinite choice, or even more than 3 choices.
It causes confusion often because your clients say, well, why aren't we using this?
And it prevents economies of scale from forming. And so that's sort of what we want to do with the tools directory and things is we're not kingmakers, we don't want to play that role, but we do want to try and, Dion described happy paths, create these paths that we can tell people, listen, if you want to get this done, here are 3 ways to do it end to end. Here's a bunch of companies that have done each of these paths that are case studies, and here's how you can go do that.
Yeah.
Is it just philosophically opposed for someone like Mozilla to play kingmaker, or is there a business risk? Or
I think Mozilla, it doesn't feel right for Mozilla to do that kind of thing. So that's why, even on subtle things like John Ressig is in our group, jQuery is an amazing thing for the web. But it's not Mozilla jQuery. Mozilla doesn't try and say you should use jQuery. We put it in products, put other things in products. I think
it's interesting. It almost
choice to stay away.
like Linux has Linus as the benevolent dictator or whatever.
Dictator?
Yeah.
Is what you're proposing?
Yeah,
We
don't really have one of those for the web, and again, it's a blessing and a curse. It's good things about it, bad things about it.
And we do have one for Firefox ultimately, and that's a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
It's a funny discussion because we've been talking to a lot of people about Flex the last 2 days. The next generation of Flex is interesting at this point because it seems to be so much about designers. So, I got excited about it coming from a Java developer because it's so productive and so I can sit down and write an UI, and I'm not a designer, and I don't want to be a designer, and I wouldn't have the ability if I tried to. And so to see where they're taking the product, I think there's a lot of concern and unrest. And so you want that open web part where you have a voice, but then the other side is, for each client, it's nice to have that.
And if I'm a designer, I'm going to be you know what I mean? I could be on top of the developer now instead of just being the guy who gives a PSD and
which I actually think is a great thing, but we work in a lot of IT shops and there isn't a designer. So with Flex 2 and Flex 3, it's not a commercial grade, WYSIWYG kind of sexy web app, but we can deliver some pretty compelling things compared to what we could do 3, 4, 5 years ago, and very quickly too. And they don't have, if they're deploying to an internal customer base, the open web questions are even less in that situation. But you do get into the kind of fear of what is my vendor doing to me and what is my escape hatch? Is the Flex framework going to get forked? Is it?
We definitely recognize those challenges. We look at Flash Catalyst and we think there ought to be something like that for the web. And in fact, there may be projects like that.
Maybe there will be someday.
You could imagine someone
would be sign an NDA.
For Mozilla, we do things out in the open, but we tend to release really early. But we do have sort of that the brainstorming wall, let's say, has some concepts.
I think that's a good thing. You hear about things, and if they never come to be,
it's definitely interesting.
You don't want to become known as the vaporware web company.
The tools director was kind of an example there because it was a labs experiment we released early, and I think 40% of the people who looked at it really got it and said this is a great first step, and 60% of the people were like, how come this isn't a real product? I expect this to be
Well, and that was actually my reaction is when I saw that I thought maybe it was this web tool that not all the way IDE, but I go get this thing.
it's a branding challenge
Give me
for
that
us.
happy path.
And I need to be. I think we need to be a little better at like educating people on the Mozilla philosophy, which is like throw it out super early because we want engagement.
Yeah.
But we're definitely concerned about like the default experience for web applications being better. Like you shouldn't have to like evaluate 100 different Ajax GUI toolkits,
exactly.
like 90% of which are not really complete for creating a GUI. You should be able to just like say, hey, I want to just do it, and I don't have to like. So
that's
we're
why
very
so many
cognizant
people in the
of
Java world, we had the same thing, right? Web frameworks on the back end.
Oh, yeah.
Which one do you use?
Well, and it's
one
fun as a geek.
web framework for every project.
Yeah, and then you write your own. And then when Ruby on Rails came along, a lot of people from the Java world loved it just because of the choice.
Right, yeah.
Great, I'm done.
Yeah.
I can start on day one.
And I'm sorry to say this, but like JSF, I think the whole reason why that had so much traction, because clearly from a technical perspective, again, I'm sorry, you know who you are, but it sucks. It really sucks.
The world's most elaborate hack.
And like it got a ton of traction because people desired that standard. They desired to know what the roadmap was, and so that's why so many people wasted so much time and energy on something that, from a technical perspective, after 5 or 10 minutes, you could look at it and go like, "This is insanity."
So you're going to be our second guest to proclaim Java component frameworks dead.
Well,
Matt Rabel was the first.
Really?
Yeah. He said component frameworks are dead, and John and I were like, what? And then he had to clarify that he meant server-side component frameworks like JSF were dead because they don't scale and that sort of thing.
yeah, I think it's definitely right that the era of doing client-side components on the server is over because the client
Which is
to do it.
Seems crazy
Term
anyway.
that I can't get my head around.
Yeah.
Client side, server side.
It was pre-Ajax thinking, and JSF just, again, it was wrong timing and stuff. And we've been in a position where we actually had to endorse it to clients before because in the Java space, what else are you going to do?
Right, yeah.
Like, it's
Oh,
either
we all
JSF
did.
or like a small little framework from some guy in Oregon who's a personal friend of ours.
We all love Howard. Howard's awesome.
And we will get a comment from him on this.
And now that he works at Foremost, a company and stuff, it's a little bit better. There's a company that's kind of behind it.
Yeah.
But, you know, how do you make that recommendation?
Yeah.
Clojure, that's where you gotta go.
Yeah, he's all into Clojure.
Yeah.
You
Let's
talk
go,
about
Yeah.
let's go even more obscure.
Clojure's cool.
It is very cool.
I really like
It's
Clojure.
impressive stuff.
Yeah. Can't use it, but I love it.
Yeah.
Theoretically.
Let's keep going down the JSF sun path. So what's your guys' take on JavaFX and the RA space outside of the browser and what other vendors are trying to do?
Yeah,
Do you
well-
think, throw one more in there for you, what do you think the Oracle effect's going to be on JFX, and if you have thoughts on the Java platform and what you think they'll do?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Larry told us the future. Us Ajax guys will be just on our knees,
Praying to James
praying
Dawson.
to say thank you so much for bringing us
Yeah.
Java FX. We were at the keynote at Java
Yeah.
One.
Yeah.
Fun times. Yeah, I just Java FX is like extremely poor timing again. Like you've got great things with Flex and Silverlight. So if you're going to go kind of the plugin world, then there's things that are much better in many ways.
Yep.
And then if you're not into that, you're going to go web.
Yep.
So why exactly are you going to do this JavaFX thing that
Because you
isn't
can
finished?
drag it from your browser onto your desktop.
Yeah. Yeah, and like, I mean, so we did a talk at the show, Ajax versus JavaFX, and we kept thinking that by now it's probably, you know, they've been talking about it a couple of years, you know, it's solid, and then we go to a page and you like hit the scroll bar and move and it disappears. The whole Java applet just disappears. Still today.
Nice.
Like it is
Yeah.
totally unusable.
Yeah.
And deployment, so it's like game over. So
Yeah, there's a whole little
No way.
deployment issue too.
yeah.
John was telling me recently about it.
I needed to write just the simplest one-screen app that talks over serial communication to configure a little microcontroller. And so obviously I can't use Air because there's no native support. Whatever, leave that alone. But so I'm like, fine, let's use Java, and it just is the classic scenario where I got this little gig through my father-in-law who is doing microcontroller stuff. So I was trying to set up just a simple app on his machine, and Java just hasn't changed, you know. I'm like, okay, I'll use WebStart, and he didn't have he had JDK like 1.4, so an hour and a half later over his internet connection, it's finally downloaded. 25 minutes to install it on his machine, and,
4
and then
reboots.
literally 2 reboots, and his machine takes 15 minutes to boot up, and I get the thing working. And when I go to show him it and test it with, so we can hook up and make sure the serial stuff's communicating, his internet connection's dead. So I just had it checking every time in my web start file, and it's just like, this is why I'm doing Flash right now, because I don't think about any of that. I spend my time on features, and it just was classic, how have they not solved this?
Sun, it's unfortunate because they have so many things that are well positioned. They have some great core engineers on the JavaFX team. Not very many of them anymore, but they have some great engineers
on the Flex team.
But, yeah. But it's all about the details, and this is actually some of the reasons I don't like Flash and Flex right now, because I think there are these subtle details that impact the user experience that aren't right still after 5 to 6 years.
Yeah, I just brought up one of these. It's minute. Talking with Hans, who used to be at Sun about it, but
sure.
but the problem is that, and this is just a minor usability thing, but it really annoys me, is that when you start scrolling on a scroll bar and your mouse, you're holding down the button on your mouse, and your mouse cursor wanders off the scroll bar, then it still scrolls, but everything on that in that app still reacts to mouse over events. So you're getting all these things flying around the screen as you're scrolling. Like essentially, the scroll event's supposed to be modal, so that nothing reacts to mouse events while you're holding down on the scroll bar. And I'm just like, this is minor, but it's really annoying.
No, totally.
And the amount of work that it would take a developer to actually fix that is massive.
Hans is
it's
still
not
working
built
on
into
scroll
the
bars, dude. He's working on scroll bars like 2
he's
years
the
ago.
scroll bar king. Man. It's
Yes, indeed.
the new
Swing
scrolling stuff
architect.
is awesome, but yeah, that was just one of those little usability things. So hopefully we get that fixed for
There's
Flex 4.
definitely
But
dozens of those little things that.
And if Sun's history is any indication, they don't have the resources or the focus to get those details right. So it will always suck. It'll always you can check off that they have editor integration with Photoshop, but when you actually use it, it's just wrong in 1,000 subtle ways.
Yeah.
And how does a team with those resources and that size get us?
Well, so with Larry Ellison's comment, maybe he's willing to pour
Bow
a
down.
ton of
the
new money into
unfortunate thing
it.
for that is, has Oracle done anything but databases right? I mean, Oracle applications.
They bought BEA.
They're great. They're great integrators of other people. This is actually the point I was just going to make. This is my concern with Adobe, and I think Adobe and Sun and Oracle are all great examples of this. People don't seem to change their nature. Sun gave us great server-side tools, and Adobe gave us a pretty good UI product, but now they're taking it back to the designers, I think at the cost of the developers, and it seems like everybody goes back to what they know. Big technology companies don't seem to be able to learn new tricks, and so I don't think Sun's ever going to give us anything.
I think Oracle will do a good job at the business guys coming in and being like, no, you're not working on that.
They know
you're doing that? No, you're not doing that.
They know where the business value is.
Yeah.
But in terms of innovating and building technologies.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, you said you wanted to talk about LCDS. I don't want to pick on that. But it's clear that Adobe and Micromedia understand the client better than they do the server. And Sun understands the server better than they do the client.
Although Adobe Software Updater makes me think that Adobe doesn't understand software as much as they.
Don't even get me started on the
It's
updater.
been 5 years.
Did you see we released Adobe Wave?
Yeah.
Which is like a general notification system for your desktop. It's an air app.
Oh.
So you can essentially go in and subscribe to notifications from anywhere. And my first comment when Adobe internally said they're working on this notification thing, I said, aren't users annoyed enough already at how many notifications they get from Adobe applications? I don't mind if we do this product, but let's not brand it Adobe, because every user, when I tell them I work at Adobe, they're like, oh, you're the company that gives me pop-ups every day or notifications on my system every day.
I know,
my
favorite is when the updater's updating itself. That's just the best. It's a new updater, but do it silently in the background.
Yeah.
Just do it.
So I'm totally on the same page with the updater and notifications. Luckily, I'm on Linux, so I don't have the Adobe updater, so I don't see it. But
Flex Builder.
yeah,
I've talked to Kevin Lynch about it 2 or 3 years ago. He was telling me how awful the updater is. Surely you guys have the resources to hire someone to fix it.
yeah, really.
So when are we going to see an open source Flash player?
There is one. It's called Gnash. It's looking for contributors right now.
Sponsor.
So what is Adobe going to contribute to?
We opened the Swift specifications so that Yeah.
That's like a good question though. Like, I still am way confused about why Adobe doesn't just target the web platform. Like, I get it that like you guys think you have an economy of scale in the Flash runtime, and there are some benefits to the Flash runtime, but like make Flash gears and just target the web.
Right.
And let your stuff be just like amazing tools for web developers.
Yeah.
It's not like you sell Flash. I mean, you'd still get the software license sales you get today. It's
Yeah.
just
You should be able to stay ahead of the standards groups all the time, so you can just keep adding new features that developers want.
Yeah.
And so people would still need Flash.
How would that be different? Why is Flash gears
So
different
instead
than
of
Flash
having
plugin?
instead of having Flex target Flash as the
Right.
graphical surface, have it target the web.
Right.
Have Flex be the
HTML.
web's GUI toolkit.
JavaScript.
And
Yeah.
you still get the productivity benefits and things like that. And when you need camera access or audio access, things that aren't present in all browsers, i.e.,
Yeah.
Yeah.
use Flash to
Yeah.
bridge that gap. And you'd sort of pave over all these religious differences that people have about Flash versus the open web.
Right.
It would be great.
Aren't there
Yeah,
some technical
HTML.
pitfalls in that though?
Like what would some of them be?
Well, if you're targeting primarily the browser, right? Isn't part of the benefit that they do things that you can't do in the browser?
So
I
like,
shouldn't say that
I
here.
keep wanting Flex to be like crazy rich, like the default Flex experience to be gorgeous. And
But
to
have you
like,
seen Flex 4?
the
He's
last,
being sarcastic.
the last Flex stuff I've
I'm
seen
being
was
really
like,
sarcastic. Sorry.
It's like, wow, you guys have this graphical surface. Apparently, it's hardware accelerated on some Flash runtimes. Do something.
Yeah.
So like the Flex experience today could be HTML5 just fine. H could be HTML4 just fine. And like maybe at some point in the future you'll leverage that, but by the time you get around to it, Canvas will be pretty much everywhere, and you could use Flash as a Canvas bridge if IE9 doesn't have Canvas, and I suspect it will.
Yeah.
So
There's a good religious discussion over that.
Yeah. So why do you want it to be open source? The VM.
Well, actually, from a like philosophical standpoint, it's gonna sound ridiculous. You guys should tell me what an idiot I am for this, but I don't really want it to be more open. I feel like I'm going to get more innovation as a developer from a single vendor, but at the same time, I'm concerned about the technical chops to deliver solutions to some of the pain points. The VM doesn't perform well enough, doesn't garbage collect well enough. I feel like open source could be a solution to that. But from a what functionalities there and how it accomplishes it, it doesn't really matter to me.
Yeah, and I think it's there's also like other things I think I'd prefer first, like let the VM have a plugin system where
Yeah.
people are like, oh, it's good, innovate around the edges, and it's not the whole like Flash has to stay at 1 meg,
Yeah.
it can't go beyond 1 meg. It's like,
Yeah.
hello, like,
Yeah.
1 meg, really?
I don't care about that from extreme. I want it to stay small if possible. We all
Yeah.
do, but I
But
just
I want
it to get
on-demand
better.
services that I can then add and be like, hey, microphone stuff, I want to be able to build that and leverage
Sure.
Flash's platform to do it.
Sure. Yeah,
Just
that'd
have
be
it
awesome.
bolt on.
But for me, I just want it to. It's got to get better, and it may be, but I'm not convinced that they're focused on developers at Adobe. It seemed like they were the first few versions, but
it's tough, man. You got like the mobile focus at Adobe now, and like it's
Yeah,
like,
mobile is
What is your
huge.
version of like all the screens of your life? Like Microsoft has a version of that slogan. Sun has one. You guys have one?
I don't even know, but yeah.
is it
It's
good
like-
or bad that they don't have one? I'm really glad.
Slogan?
The all the screens of your life slogan.
Oh yeah.
We have a slogan. I
Yeah,
just-
okay.
everyone has them. Yeah.
It's I mean, the vision is to get the Flash platform everywhere. You know,
Yeah.
in the browser, on the desktop, on mobile devices, on TVs, in cars, wherever. That's the big idea.
That's the interesting tension though. It's like you want to make it even smaller than it is, and then developers want more features, and yeah, it's like it kind of excites me from a competitive perspective if the web is a competitor to Flash because it's such an artificial constraint. Like if you guys had a plugin system, you could add all these features,
Yeah.
but as long as you're like, well, how can we squeeze it into 5K? It's like, cool, that gives us time
Yeah,
to like
exactly.
get it in the web.
And let the best ones win.
Yeah.
And then you can be like, oh look, everyone's using plug-in foo. Maybe we should put that in the core
Right.
because everyone's using it.
Yeah.
So, what do you guys think about today's news and Google buying Onto?
Onto? That was
That's pretty
interesting.
huge.
Yeah,
I'm sure
yeah.
there's some people meeting at Adobe to. chat
Yeah.
about things.
You know.
You would imagine that people would
I-
want to talk about that.
I heard that this may help Google with some of the patent related issues around video.
Yeah.
but I don't know all the patents that are involved
The
there.
big piece is that we have Ogtheor, which is an open source codec, which it turns out is like old technology. ON2 developed it like 7 or 8 years ago.
Yeah.
It was internally called VP6.
Right. Yeah.
And they have these other codecs, VP7 and VP8, which are very, very competitive to the other like H.264 and things, but they're supposedly unencumbered by patents. And so if Google were to like take VP8 and call it OG, whatever, OG8, then the web could have, because their argument against Ogtheor is that it's just not efficient enough. And so that would make this go away. Like all of a sudden YouTube would have no technical argument against using an open source codec.
Cool.
So it could change the landscape a bit, because if YouTube supported it,
that would change that a bit.
Yeah. Google goes, opens it up, all the browsers put it on, and they put it up on YouTube. It's like, how long would it take for that to be?
Yeah.
I mean, Apple obviously has an interest in H.264 and other stuff being the default codec, but they're such a minority browser, frankly, that they're not in a leverage position. And so
and the only content to them that really matters being an H.264 is iTunes content, right?
Yeah, probably.
Video content.
Well,
they don't do a whole lot of web. I mean, they do some web video via QuickTime on their own website, but as far as being a content provider like YouTube, they don't have anything on that scale.
Yeah.
So.
Will that have an impact on the HTML5 spec and the video tag support and those things potentially? Or
Well, Google will have to talk to the editor of the HTML5 spec.
But where does he work? He works at Google. No, I think it's awesome. Like, we're ready to go. The video tag's there. It's just like who supports which codecs, and if enough people can
if
get
they
a
could
codec.
put that open source codec in
Exactly.
YouTube, then it's kind of hard for the other vendors to say you can't use YouTube in your browser, right?
Yeah, and if only they had a plugin system that could get it into other. Well, they have that too with Gears, so they could put it everywhere, even if no one.
Interesting.
Not just Chrome. Yeah.
Huh. So it's exciting to open up video finally.
Yeah.
Long way to go. They haven't even got the company yet. But who knows how good VP8 is? Is it competitive?
I thought you were going to say like Microsoft's lobbyists to prevent it.
Oh,
Maybe a fact.
Interesting.
I'm sure that scares people at Adobe.
Yeah, totally. I mean, video. I mean, if you're going to do YouTube right now, you can't do open. Like, you have to use Flash or something like.
So is the Java half of the development world, like, is Sun even relevant in the client, or is it just open web technologies and Flash at this point? Or do you guys see
I don't want to be callous, but Sun's utterly irrelevant.
I don't want to be bad.
We're glad you are.
And they have to invite you back to speak at Java 1 because you guys were like the top 3 session or something at Java 1 this year, top 2.
We can't usually
only
get
beaten
that.
by Josh Block.
Can't usually get people to be that candid when they're drinking, so it's a good podcast.
What's frustrating is like we said, they had some really awesome technology. Java applets could have been Flash, could have been Gears, could have been all this stuff.
Yeah,
even right now, it's a great way to extend stuff. Like we did this Wii thing at Java 1 years ago, and we used Java to get to Bluetooth, and it was a great way to do that. It gave us that extension point, but they've done nothing with that. The one guy who was like a super genius that was doing great things with it is now off doing something else.
Sure. Google.
Yeah. And so.
Yeah, it's a shame.
So is it just a race between those two camps then in the Java world, Flash and Open Web, or is there going to be another?
I think
Silverlight
is like, if you specifically identify Java players, then yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think
in
if
the
we all
general
split the world
ecosystem.
into, if you're a Microsoft developer, you're probably not using Flash. You're probably going to use what's in the box.
I think like the companies that want to stack, .NET is compelling. And again, the only reason why people avoid .NET generally is the Microsoft/Windows poison pill. And I think a lot of people are increasingly just saying, listen, is this rational? Like, sure, I have to spend $1,000 a year on Windows licenses, but like, wouldn't I save like hundreds of thousands of dollars in terms of like developers and stuff? I think more and more people are starting to do that math. And on the Java side, I see Flex adoption taking off like, hockey stick curve style.
Yeah.
It's really, because they killed Swing. They like Swing had like over 50% share according to that one survey.
Yeah,
I'd love to go deeper on that. Moms could probably give you some. But like, it was like massively popular for whatever reason, and they just killed it.
They just lack of alternative.
Yeah,
personally, but
and they just killed it. They just said we're stopping. I mean, what the hell? And like JavaFX was not even ready. It wasn't even. They called it a 1.0, but it wasn't even close to 1.0 status in any technical definition. And then it stopped development. So they.
But it's the typical stuff like they just showed off the Java App Store at Java 1. Right?
Yeah.
And the way they showed it off was, hey, James, been playing around with the App Store thing? Yeah, just kind of hacked around. I'll show you a little. Oh, here's a GUI, and there's this weird button that tells you where to click.
And this
stuff.
weird red arrow.
Yeah, arrows are telling you. And okay, next thing. But like people have done like amazing engineering on this app store on the back end to do all these things that iTunes can't do.
We talked to the lead architect.
Yeah, and it's like really interesting things.
But they just didn't play it up
And they
to
did
be
play.
what it was.
They were just like, yeah, here's this little UI thing. And by the way, you can't buy. We don't have any payment system, so basically you don't even bother looking at it. When like if it was him up there, he'd be like, here's some really cool technical things we do. We're working on the payment stuff, but be ready.
Yeah.
Build apps now and be
Yeah.
ready for it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't understand why there is a Java App Store, but like
You're
normal
gonna
marketing
build one.
people would have done something
Right.
like that.
It's funny, we were talking to some of the guys, and they're like, so the plan was, at the keynote, they were going to like tell people that like, be ready, because in 3 months we'll cash registers in there, and like, and the keynote that actually got displayed was like, it's James Gosling's little pet project, and James was like, oh, I could have finished it a year ago.
Yeah, it was just bizarre.
Wow.
That's
Crazy.
So is Java 1 a miss conference next year?
I don't know if it is a conference next year.
Yeah.
That's
That's
I didn't get to go this year. I was in Nepal, but I was talking to somebody who was there, and they said it was like a funeral.
Yeah.
Totally.
Is that really what it felt like? Did
Yeah,
it feel
yeah,
that
especially
bad?
at the beginning. And it's just you've got ponytail boy like sneaking off the
dude.
stage.
Yeah, it's like McNeely got up on stage and Schwartz was gone. He was like,
so you just destroyed 13 billion in market cap for Sun, and you get 30 million to leave the company.
and then Ellison quite obviously was speaking off the cuff.
Larry, you're welcome
Wow.
to come on.
Yeah.
Anytime.
We'll have you on the show.
Yeah, I love it when they get the sailing. I don't know if you all heard about this. McNeely has this big gesture where he like gets out these little sailing flags, semaphore flags or whatever. And he's like, look, this is for you, Larry. And I was just like, Larry, you're a big sailor. What does this say? I don't know. Like spelled Java.
He's like, I don't actually know how to read the sailing flags.
I know. It's like,
Nice.
So you're that kind of stuff.
yeah,
Wow.
you're a sailor who has a captain who does all the work.
Right.
It's just so funny.
Wow.
Everything was just.
Yeah, it
wild.
was dead, and like all the keynotes were like they constrained the seats and things like that to try and give the illusion. that
All the
people
rooms
were
had
there.
desks, so like normally it would be like.
Yeah.
Make it feel a little more full.
Yeah. Who
So,
knows?
Our beloved Java community.
I
It's,
know. It's a great
Be
community.
interesting to see what happens with
the
Oracle.
legions are like there to march to war. You know?
People,
They just
yeah, I
need
mean,
someone
people are
to
so
lead 'em.
dedicated. You know,
Yeah.
it's like we love Java. We'll always love Java.
All the things it does a lot
We're
well.
loyal people.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Java
Yeah.
runtime's fantastic.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I wanted to talk about your blog you posted recently about the red or the blue pill.
Yeah.
Thought it was a fascinating read. Something it was a topic that's been mingling around the back of my head lately. So maybe tell us what that blog was about and where you're at with.
Sure.
that
So
stuff.
I've loved Apple products for a long time. I think they build amazing things,
Stellar products.
and they just nail it. They do it better than anyone else. But recently, I've just keep getting this kind of irksome feeling about what's behind the product. And the typical Matrix stuff comes along where it's just like, what am I really doing here? It's like, if I was enslaved in this room, people were feeding me great food and I had a good laugh, is that okay?
Right.
And like, that's how I'm kind of feeling with Apple right now. I have this shiny, great stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Makes me productive, so it's very helpful. But I'm just like, keep getting this nagging sensation, mainly because of iPhone and App Store. But like, last 2 weeks, after the post, like every other day there's some just totally bizarre thing where people are being rejected from their apps and this, that, and the other. And it's like, I couldn't imagine being like, I'm putting up a website and have to call someone and be like, can you put this on the internet?
Right, yeah.
And some random dude in India is like, sorry.
My comment on your blog in response to you was, imagine how different the world would be if in Windows 3.1 days or, DOS 5 days, we had to go to Microsoft in order to get applications approved before someone could install them on their machines.
And
imagine
it's funny,
how
it's
different
actually,
the software world would
that's
be.
How the gaming console world works today. It's funny how like, there's these situations.
Yeah.
But it's like, as you look at this, because we've had some conversations on this, it's like, as you look at the landscape, I kind of ask myself, what's the real value of freedom, right? Because like in the Apple dictatorship, you kind of seem
things.
happy.
Yeah.
And so you ask yourself, like, well, if you apply this in terms of freedom, if I didn't have freedom, if I were a slave, but if I were a very well-fed slave, and I had like a great meal, and I had everything provided for, but is freedom just an abstraction?
Right.
And I think the answer is, it kind of is, until the food gets really bad. Or until they stop feeding you.
Right.
And then all of a sudden,
until they only feed you lentils for a week.
And then all of a sudden you're just like, well, I really kind of wish I had my freedom. And that's the unfortunate reality of software.
Right.
So often it's like, we look at all these axes, but like if freedom isn't there, if we rely on a vendor, we could have that moment when the food turns sour.
Yeah.
And that's why I did another post on like, people have been talking a lot about open source, this, that, and the other. How important is it to have Flash open source, all this kind of stuff. And I think that stuff can be important, but there's a different scale of open source, and we have to respect vendors if they do open source it, how they do it, because it's their IP, it's their stuff. Like I think it's so easy for freetards to come out and be like, oh, you use GPL, you evil, or the other way around, and all this stuff.
Totally.
It's like, it's their stuff. Who are you, some schmo, and you get to.
Well, and like you mentioned in your blog, Apple, Adobe, Microsoft, Google, we all have a responsibility to our shareholders, and as public companies, we have to provide them value, and so we can't go do something that would totally destroy revenue streams.
Totally,
just because we feel it's good for humanity.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was good that you recognized that it's just these companies aren't inherently evil. They're just doing what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to make money.
Exactly. Yeah. And you just need to be able to because the thing that I think bugs developers is when people co-opt open, and all of these big companies do it in different ways all the time.
Sure.
Everything's open something these days, and it's like
I've thought about trying to come up with a new brand, like not open but emergent. If you're familiar with like emergence theory?
Yeah.
I think it's almost a better fit for what we call like really truly open is more of an emergent system than an open system.
Yeah. Yeah, and
you talk about labels though. We know some people who want to start applying organic to software.
Oh, right.
It's like,
Have like
I guess I could kind of see, but it's funny how these branding terms take on like these emotional meanings, and like we start to throw them around in ways that are somewhat meaningless.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of what I definitely. I like the point a lot about being a slave, not having your freedom, but it does feel like there's never pure freedom. There's never pure organic or pure open source.
So that's the thing. Everything's a scale, and I think we just need to have more conversation about when this thing comes out. This is where it kind of is in the scale, and here's the trade-offs.
Yeah.
And there's no better or worse. It's just different trade-offs.
Yeah, exactly.
I complained that with Gears, when we were doing a lot of stuff, we wanted to open it up so anyone could create services just like in Java, and Browser Plus is starting to do that, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
But I can also see at the same time, now how do you maintain that, and what's the quality, and there's all this tax that you pay.
Sure.
So it's not that it's better; it's different.
Yeah.
And I think it's important for a platform, but you can see it.
It's an absolute. Just seem like that's what the risk is. It's finding the balance of open but supported, right?
Yeah.
And you don't want to put your client on the guy up in Oregon's framework when that kind of thing. It's truly free means where it's the.
I think a lot of it comes down to trust. Who are we willing to trust, and like right now, we've placed trust in Apple, and just like in any human relationship, if they begin to violate that trust, then we're going to look at other options. And so, and even with the open web, there are people and entities that we have to trust when we embrace the open web, and hopefully they continue to do things that are right. But if they don't, we're going to look at other options.
And then you look at again, most developers, I want to develop something for the iPhone. Yeah, there's an agreement thing, but come on, who's really going to read it?
Right.
If this agreement thing hypothetically said something like, by signing this, okay, you can use the platform, but if I send another form along, you've automatically signed it too, and the next form says give me all your money.
Right.
People go, this is freaking crazy.
Yeah.
Some companies do things like this.
Yes.
And have these ridiculous things. Developers whatever. It's any legal thing that we're trained to just hit OK pretty much and go on with it, and it's some pretty crazy stuff can be happening.
Yeah.
The happy thing though is like if you look at Microsoft's dominance of the operating system industry back in the 90s, it's difficult to imagine that because of the strategic blunders that have been made. Like with Apple partnering in an exclusive relationship with AT&T, I'm very happy about that because
Right.
if every carrier had the iPhone, I would be a little nervous. But like every other carrier is now massively investing in some alternative. The Palm
Right.
Pre with Sprint and other people. So I'm really happy that there'll be a vibrant, emergent,
Oh,
competitive
absolutely.
marketplace
Yeah.
for mobile, so that Apple can't get the same
Yeah.
block on mobile that Microsoft has.
Well, and that's really what we want is for there to be like healthy evolutionary processes that help move things forward for the benefit of us, the consumers.
Yeah.
And when that doesn't happen, it's annoying.
It is.
Yeah.
It is kind of like Apple's making billions and billions and billions on the iPhone. It's like you would think that would be enough, but
Yeah,
like
yeah, totally.
you know, there are other people who can also make a lot of money. They don't need to have that.
It's
same
fun to
money.
see though that like, you know, what if Steve Jobs had been Bill Gates?
Yeah.
Had one, like what world would we
Yeah,
be in?
yeah. I mean, what would our desktop PCs be like if we had to go through a Microsoft App Store to install
It's
applications?
actually
approved
it's a
by
very
Microsoft?
interesting question because like Windows would be a whole lot more elegant. Like
Yeah.
maybe we'd all be
We
happy.
probably wouldn't have virus problems like we do today. I mean, I mean, there's trade-offs.
Yeah.
It's like we were talking about
That is
before.
definitely the question we should start with next time because we have a meeting.
Yeah,
Cool.
we're out of
Okay.
time, but
Thanks so
thanks so
much for
much.
taking the time.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
been
it was
great.
fun.
Thanks so much for doing it.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cool.
Thank
Cheers.
you.